Coming up on More Than Before.
We're not robots. We have imperfections, and there's so much beauty in those imperfections. You can't win them all. You're just not going to be able to achieve that, and you're going to run yourself into the ground.
This is More Than Before with Nathan Cook.
Hey everyone, we have an amazing guest, and I am so excited to dive into his story. He is quite an amazing entrepreneur, owning 2 businesses here in Oregon. He is the co-owner of Insomnia Coffee Company, Dapper and Wise Roasters, and he is the president and artistic director at Love Good Performing Arts Company. He is an incredible dad of 5 amazing kids, and most importantly, he has a huge heart for serving people and serving the community. Evan Aldrete, I'm so excited to have you on. How are you doing today, brother?
I am doing good. Thank you so much for having me on.
You know, it's funny. We've known each other for a while, but we were talking before we even got on. And it's funny because you see people from only one dimension. I've known you from the coffee world for so long. And then as soon as I started to see you in the performing arts world, I was like, man, I think he's having a midlife crisis or something. And
Yeah.
it really is. It's fun to get to know people on such a different level because you are really heavily involved in the community. And so I'm really excited to dive into that story. Where did everything kind of start for you? What was life growing up for you? What kind of childhood did you have? Were you the outgoing child? Were you the shy child? Give us a little bit of background of who you are.
Yeah, I will condense this immensely. I would say that as a kid, I would say maybe let's start at like adolescent, preteen-ish. I was definitely a strange child. I wanted attention, and and obviously junior hires have we all know the tropes, their awkward phases, and I just was determined to carry my awkward phase on
Through life.
for attention. Yeah. And I didn't mind it. I used to say, my mom says I'm special. So yeah. And I think that there has always been that part of me that doesn't mind being in front of people or being the weird one or whatever. I have always been an extrovert. I would say I love people energy. I love being around groups of people. For a majority of my life, I have been very comfortable at center stage, and facilitating conversation and being a part of the mix. And that wasn't really different as a kid. And it was really in spite of a lot of tumultuous and kind of difficult things to explain over a podcast, but things that were going on in my childhood. So I think a lot of my extroverted nature came out of necessity to create a facade for people to see that, in spite of whatever was happening happening at home, I was able to keep up the energy, the appearance, of joy and all of that. So.
Well, and I love that you say that, the energy and that joy within the appearance, because that's something that I've always kind of noticed about you is you walk into a room and you're just a ball of energy, you're a ball of joy, and you want to bring joy into a room. And whether that's, 'cause I've seen you walking into serious conversations, at the roastery, and even in those moments, you still have a lightheartedness when you go in, and you still kind of carry that joy. I'm curious, from childhood, what were some of those things that you picked up? I think you said it really well that you kind of wear this mask as a child. Because you're not quite 100% sure who's going to accept you for who you are. And so
Right.
I'm curious, how did that play a part in your life, identity wise, as your circles that you were running in? Did you have a hard time fitting in with people? Were you an excellent connector? Were you a chameleon?
Yeah, definitely not a chameleon. Connector, yes. I would say I have social ninja skills. I like to read people and try to figure out where the conversation can go. And I have been someone who can make really friends with any type of personality. I've been told several times by by my wife or people that are closer to me. They're like, I don't even know how you can be friends with that person. That is a tough person. That's a tough nut, right? And to crack. And there, friendship is a sphere of, that has many levels to it and layers to it. I would say that, there is an openness to me, depending on the type of person that they can perceive.
Mm.
And honestly, that has really translated into how we created like the feel at Insomnia and what, because we have every single kind of customer and demographic that you can imagine, at the shops. And I play that game in front of my baristas for them to see, every single person. You can cater that experience to their personality and all of that. So that has transcended from my past, just how I communicate in larger groups, or even just one-on-one
Mm.
with different people. And I think, again, if I get approval, if I get approval and affirmation from every person, um, and you can't win them all. I know
Yeah.
this. I mean, this is a precursor to where I am now. Um, but if my goal was to just really be on everyone's good side,
Mm.
and not to make this a super dramatic drop, but I had pretty dangerous people in my life, as a kid. And one particular man that my mom was married to, and he, again, I won't go into details, but because he had a dangerous nature to him, I felt, as a young man, you have two options: you fight or flight, and my goal wasn't to fight, because I'm not a fighter per se. But I definitely can manipulate a conversation and a relationship. And I mean, I used to shy away from that word. It used to be a four-letter word to me, manipulation, but it was, as I've learned through counseling and all of that, it is really a tool that I had to use to survive my childhood. And, so the people that are harder to deal with, more challenging to deal with, I kind of know how to speak their language. So
How did you get into the coffee business? Because if I recall correctly, that was not the original intent. That was not the big dream that you had in life. You had other interests. How did it transition into coffee? Because coffee, I mean, it is definitely a culture. It's a community, especially when you get into it. What drew you to that, and how did you get started in that?
yeah, so the coffee world, was due to my wife. When I moved up to Oregon, in 2004, she had at that point been working for a small mom and pop coffee shop that's actually still there in Aloha. And she had been working there for like 6 years, 6 or 7 years at that point. And she had just, I mean, it was different because I'm a Southern California kid, right? So all we had was really like Starbucks and all of that, like the chains that I recognize, really very small.
Yeah.
And my understanding of coffee was pretty small too. And then when I came up and saw this line of customers that were like waiting in the morning, in their cars, and then Amy just going crazy with getting those drinks out super fast, and the customers just adoring her to death, like giving her things through the window. I'm just like, wow, this is so cool that she knows all of these people and what their drinks are and all of that stuff. It was just a mind, bending moment. It just, definitely changed my perspective, on coffee. And I was classically like, my first like drink was like, that I was like, oh, I love coffee, was sadly like a very sweet, like probably peppermint white chocolate mocha or whatever. And I remember getting Dutch Brothers for the first time, when I was in my early 20s and all that. And I was like, oh man, this is killer. Um, so yeah, and I definitely have evolved, palette wise, but yeah, I would attribute our start to, watching that happen. And then so with her being, working there, and her dad being a small business owner, and Tyler, and I had traveled. Oh gosh, I didn't even talk about the Continental Singers, but we all three were in the organization called the Continental Singers, right? And so we would travel all over the country and sing and dance for 5 weeks to 9 months at a time. That's how we all met each other separately. Tyler, when I moved up to Oregon to get married, I invited him to come and be my best man. And also, you should live here because Portland's super cool. And he's from Virginia. So that's kind of how all of those things collided, him coming from the East Coast, Amy being in coffee at that point, and me moving up as an aspiring artist, but also working like a call center job, which is classic, right?
Yeah.
And some waiting tables too. So all of us have these like. Oh, I didn't say that my father or my stepdad at that time was a small business owner. And Tyler's dad is a small business owner. So we had these three families that came from entrepreneurs, and so we're like, we could do this, and we could even just like make it awesome, One of the I guess events that like kicked this off is that I convinced the two of them, Tyler and Amy, to be in a musical with me in Theater in the Grove in Forest Grove, and let's just say that the production wasn't the best, and so we would spend a lot of our time after rehearsals, kind of like hemming and hawing about how junky this show is going to be. But we would do that at McMenamin's, and we would be there. We close them out downstairs in the Ground Lodge, just drinking coffee super late. And we're like, we should open a late night coffee. We have to go to Vivace in Portland. They used to have that there. It's not even Vivace anymore, but they used to do crepes and all that stuff. And that's where you would get late night coffee. And we're like, oh, we should do something like that. There's no place in Hillsboro to hang out. So that's kind of the inception of how that started.
Yeah, I love it. I love it because you really had this perfect mix. In fact, I think I recall Tyler even saying, your wife was the coffee expert, he was the business expert, and you could sweet talk anyone.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which I truly love, because you all have your varying degrees of wisdom and of like concentrated knowledge, and to come together to do that is quite remarkable. But at the same time, a lot of people, when it comes to entrepreneurship, they think, oh, well, it's going to be fairly easy, like, to get started because you're really passionate, which is true. You have a lot more energy in the start. Like, the first 6 months, you guys were putting in hundreds of hours. You guys were running that place just by yourself, being the barista, doing everything from your first location in Baseline. And so I'm curious for you, what were some of those early on lessons that you guys had to learn going into business? Because some businesses you go into and there's a rough learning curve, but it's survivable. With a coffee shop, there's a lot of investment that go into a coffee shop that a lot of people don't think about. What were some of those early on lessons that you guys had to learn and actually help propel you to where you guys are now, where you guys have 6 locations all across Oregon? I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
Well, working 100-hour weeks was, I wouldn't, someone would say, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, right? I feel like that was so necessary for us to go through that season of just really, really hard work. I mean, it had sacrifices to it, but being in the business, knowing every single thing that's happening, even recognizing all the transactions, like nothing's a surprise, looking at our day, whatever, $300 day, our first day or second day, it was like, oh, if this is going to be it, we're not going to be able to stay in business, And I remember celebrating our first $1,000 sales day, and all of that. But, it felt like our finger was on the pulse. We knew everything, everybody that was coming in. And not only that, I think that we cared about every interaction. And even the ones that went sour, man, we just went to the nth degree to try to like make up for or remake a drink or try to, again, I think this probably comes from me, or but how can we salvage or make this even a more enriched like relationship with this customer, right?
Mhm.
Um, I mean, shooting forward to now, your baristas, and I don't blame them, but your average barista, like they hit close and man, they cannot wait to turn that close sign on, or that turn the open sign off, right?
Yeah.
And just like lock it up because they are done. They've worked hard and they're ready to close it down for the day. But shoot back to the golden years, as I call them, it, we would literally, like, if customers walked up to the door and it was like a minute after closing, we would be, it's okay, like, come on in, it's fine. Well, they're like, oh, no, no. The customer would be like very understanding, right? And they'd say, no, no, it's okay, I can come back tomorrow. No, 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 no.
No, please
This
come
is
in,
just,
come in.
yes, this is the kind of people that we were, because we just wanted. I mean, it really comes down to, we just wanted to make sure that they knew that we cared about our shop and that our reputation, and that we're very nice and giving people, generous people. So I feel like you can't sustain that for forever, and there's a reason why that is kind of like that sense of ownership
Mhm.
is placed on a brand new entrepreneur. I recognize it very heavily, and as I work with new business owners. And again, I don't take it away from them. I don't discredit it, because it's so necessary to have that. But eventually, you have to recognize the sustainable efforts in your energy, and really zero in on those things, because the other things are just, all of that energy of just trying to make sure you please everyone. It burns you out,
Yeah.
and you can't do it. So, and we're a big fan of the 80-20 rule,
Yeah.
so because you can't that 20%, man, you just can't do it. And I've spent years trying to, but yeah, you can't win everybody over.
Yeah.
But you can definitely still care and do the 80% really, really well.
Well, and I love that, because when you walk into an Insomnia coffee shop, or if you walk into the roasting room to get some coffee, one of the things I love, and you can truly see this with Insomnia, you walk in and the culture is so rich. And if you walk into a company, you have to understand that company's culture is a direct correlation to the person who runs it and the person who owns
Hmm.
it, especially if
Yeah.
they are heavily involved. And you and Tyler are both heavily involved in both businesses. Now, you've taken a step back a little bit because you have other
Right.
things that you're doing. However, you walk into that culture and you realize that there are two things that are high priority. One, it's the quality of coffee, extremely high. Two, it's the quality of relationships that they're constantly building. They build a community around coffee. Like, coffee's
Hmm.
there. They want coffee to be an excellent experience, but they also want the community and the relationship piece to be
Yeah,
huge. Excellence,
absolutely.
I feel like, is a huge aspect of your life. And
Hmm.
and it's funny because I've had conversations with a couple different people recently, and they say, I struggle with this idea of excellence, because I hear excellence and I think perfection. And as soon as I get into perfection, I can't move forward. I get stuck. And so
Hmm.
I'm curious for you, like, even in performing arts, if you struggle
Yeah,
to have every single line absolutely perfect and everything perfect, you can derail yourself. What is that
totally.
fine balance between perfectionism and excellence for you as you live life day to day?
I love it. That is a great question. Excellence, I think that it points really back to the nature of humanity. And we're not robots. We have imperfections, and there's so much beauty in those imperfections.
Mm.
And there, to strive to be in a season of striving for perfection, again, comes back to that thing where I'm saying you can't win them all. You're just not going to be able to achieve that, and you're going to run yourself into the ground in every area of life. And that's not just business, man. That's parenting. That's your relationship, like your spiritual relationship. Like there's so many things that applies to try to be perfect. True excellence is the full gamut.
Yeah.
Is the ability to, and if you look at a good comedy, right, a good comedy sketch, or something that's written, what they point at is not like, if they were to try to line out line by line what is supposed to be said and how it's supposed to be delivered, etc., then it's really cookie cutter, and actually you're going to miss a huge part of your audience.
Yeah, it doesn't feel
And
natural.
no, it doesn't feel natural. The best thing is you're going through this comedy sketch, or you're going through even just a drama, and you recognize the things that are imperfect, and you recognize the aspects of humanity that are there, that people would resonate with and recognize. And then that's when you win in that scenario or in that scene, because people are like, oh, that's just like me, right? So making yourself unattainable or inaccessible by striving for perfection is just it actually alienates the people that you're
Mm.
trying to be in a relationship with. I feel like it doesn't allow that bridge in relationship. It just says, oh, they're just, they're so amazing. And yeah, anyway, that's so. There's, to me, both performing arts and just in pursuing business, excellence is just it is probably a different definition for me than maybe some would put that in their minds. So
Yeah. Well, I like it because there's kind of this piece where excellence says that it's okay to not have everything together. It just means that you're showing up as best as you can. You're doing the best
hmm
that you can. That doesn't mean that you're happy with it. You continue to improve and get better. But there's also, I love
right,
what you said about this, that there's a non-judgment piece of, hey, just come in the way that you are, and it's completely fine. Wherever you
yeah,
are, you can improve that. That's great, but we're gonna allow you to come in and to be here. And so I think of that almost in terms of coffee. Like, I love that you were talking earlier of, like, your first experience with coffee was the sugar laced coffee drink, because that was my experience. My
yeah,
parents drank black coffee growing up, and I couldn't understand it. Why are you guys drinking that? And the only way you could get me to drink coffee was you had to lace it with sugar and milk, almost to the point where I
right,
couldn't actually taste the coffee. And in fact, it was actually a good friend of mine, when I originally started my career almost a decade ago. He's like, "Hey, let's go to this coffee shop." And so we pull in, and we were actually going to, I believe it was Dapper and Wise, actually, when you guys had your roasting room. And we walked in, and
hmm
I'm looking at the menu, and the menu had three items. You
yep,
had your espresso, you had a cappuccino, and you had a latte. That was it, and there were no flavors, no flavors. And
yeah,
so I'm looking at this board. I'm going, how am I going to drink any of this stuff? Like, this is going to be awful.
yeah,
And I remember reading
mm,
it, and it said, oh, I don't even remember what it was. It said, like, notes of blueberry, and there were some
yeah,
other things. And
taste
I'm like,
notes.
man, this is really over the top. They're really trying to sell this coffee. And so I sit down, I grab my little coffee cup, I got a little cappuccino, and you do the little pinky thing because you feel intelligent when you do that. And
Totally, absolutely, it's a must.
I took a sip, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this actually tastes like blueberries." Like, there was a moment where my eyes opened up to coffee, and I think what's interesting is you open up people's eyes to opportunities to experience
Mm,
things,
mm,
experience coffee in a way that they've never experienced it, experience relationships in a way that they've never experienced them, walking in and the barista knowing your name and smiling at you, and not staring at their phone, right? Like,
yeah.
there is such an environment to all of this that you've created, which is truly spectacular.
Mm,
I'm curious for this, because I know there's a lot of sacrifice when it comes to business. There's a lot of business owners that listen to this, a lot of entrepreneurs, and there's a point in your life where you have to start balancing family and business. I've had one person say,
yeah.
life is like a rhythm, and you have to understand what that rhythm is. How have you been able to juggle both of these pieces? It's not even just family for you and business, it's family, business, and the things that you love, like the theater now. How do you
Right.
balance all
Mhm.
those things out?
Yeah, it is a great question, and I can't say that I have been perfect in this area, especially in the earlier days. I'm not a workaholic. And I mean, the first time it says that you're a workaholic was when you say you're not a workaholic. I don't know, maybe that's a thing. But I'm not naturally a workaholic. I'm very much a delegator.
Mm,
So I feel like in business or in organizations, and in my relationships that I'm forming with those people in those organizations slash businesses, people will recognize that I'm willing to hand over tasks, responsibilities, and kind of just develop them as a person, as a worker, in that organization, because it's twofolded. I get the benefit of seeing them grow and develop as a person, as a worker, and then it like frees me up, to focus on other things. Again, there is a line there where business owners will not allow that to happen. And they could be in business, their small business or whatever, for a couple decades. I've seen it.
mm,
And they still do not delegate because they're so afraid of letting some of those things go. I would say that I'm the person that has the superpower of delegation. With that being said, that has been the I would say maybe the keystone habit for me to allow those things to happen so that I can free myself up for my personal life, for my family, and be home at dinner time.
mm,
Now, and where the imperfection comes in is that because I'm an energy person, right? And I would say that I've many seasons of my life I've said yes to too many things, and that what ends up happening is those things absorb my energy, um, when I'm delegating out, to for all intents and purposes. So I think that what I've had to realize, is that time that I am giving away to other people, or responsibilities that I'm giving to other people. So I have time in the evening, in the morning, etc. Those are to be used and prioritized in a way that fuels into my most important things, like my family, my time with my kids, time with my wife. And honestly, I really am there, at this junction of life. I get to spend a lot more time with my family than I feel like I'm almost embarrassed to admit. Because I feel like I'm so blessed to be able to do that, to spend time with them. Now I do have a lot on my plate still, but I am able to put my kids to bed, almost every single night.
mm.
And if not, it's like a pretty rare circumstance. And our goal is to have, at least one or two family dinners, a week, aside from our Sundays, which we literally turn our phones off, and we're not accessible on Sundays. So yeah, I can only do that because I've made the choice to hire, really amazing leaders in our business to be able to manage things, while I'm out. So, and emergencies do happen. Like this morning, I wake up to. I told you, a little bit before this interview. I'm like, oh, time. Things happen, and they always happen on Monday or Fridays. I am grateful to be able to, by and large, have a capacity for those most important things. Yeah.
And you've had to create that capacity too. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. You create the
Oh yeah.
capacity that you have in life. And
Yeah.
especially as a high performer, and maybe you don't consider yourself a high performer, but I mean, when you own two businesses
No,
and you're
that's true.
also when you're doing so many different things, you're kind of just operating, and you're doing what you're good at. But
Yeah.
at a certain point, you actually have to start delegating. You have to actually start looking at everything and saying, okay, is this really serving the ultimate goal of where I'm going, of what I'm trying to create? And I don't think a
Yeah.
lot of people actually spend time, actually processing of, like, is this a direction that I should be going? Am I
Hmm.
creating a capacity to live life the way that I really want to live?
Hmm.
How do you, as a former recovering pleaser, where I want to please
Yeah.
other people, how do you
Yeah.
how do you say no to people, in those
Mm.
seasons? How do you get to that place where you can say no so you can increase that capacity? How have you done that?
Well, like I said at the beginning, I'm, you know, I'm an extrovert, but I would say that it's less true now than it used to be. I think I used to be fueled by that need, my need for affirmation from performance, not in all senses of that word. After getting what I have received, the affirmation that I've received, accolades or whatever over the years, people saying your business is amazing, your theater is amazing, you're amazing, all of those things. I feel like I find myself now drawing back from wanting to hear it. If I'm in
Mm.
a conversation with somebody that's never met me before and we're just getting to know each other, maybe at church or something, I don't find insomnia or even love good on the tip of my tongue because I would rather get to know the person without them seeing this performance side of me or this part of
Mm.
me that was striving for that kind of attention. And I think that COVID did that to me. I used to be quite a bit of an extrovert before that, and I found that I'm still working through a lot of things with that time in our life, but I think that I recognize now what was fueling that extroverted nature, and now I'm actually very happy to draw back and wait for those perfect moments to interject myself into society,
Mm.
as opposed to being center stage or and all of that. And obviously, I have that skill set, and not a lot of people have it. As a matter of fact, I feel like the more I talk and meet with people, I find it's pretty rare that people want to step into the center of attention. Most people want to not be in that spot. So I find that it's like a tool that I can use. And then like, can you MC this or can you do this for us? I am not jumping at those opportunities, but I am able to do them and really just find the perfect moments. I don't know, call that wisdom or a conservation of energy. I don't know, but that's where I am at this point.
Well, I love that though because it controls the narrative. Like so many people want to put their job out or what they do out first,
Oh
and
man,
it creates this presupposition. It's like, hey, I'm the owner of this company, or I do this, or I perform over here, or fill in the
hmm
blank. All of a sudden, that person, no matter who it is, they already have that preconceived notion of what they believe you should be based off of doing that.
Totally.
And there's almost kind of this piece I find with people who are high performers, who are really good at what they do, who do things with excellence, and most people would look at them and go, oh my gosh, they're amazing. And they look back and they say, hey, I'm just an everyday person. I've just specialized and focused in this area, and I don't want
Right.
to be known for just that. There are other aspects of my life that I want people to
Right.
know. For you, you made a huge transition. I would say maybe it wasn't a huge transition, but you started to shift your attention away from doing the day-to-day coffee and roasting, and you made a shift to go back to something that you've always loved, which is performance. And I think it's
hmm
almost kind of I almost want to say it's kind of like a Cinderella story almost, because it's something that you put down. You put this down, and
Yeah.
you thought it was kind of the end. Like, okay, so I'm going to give this up so
hmm
I can focus on the business. And then,
Right.
16 years later, probably 14 years later, you come back and you start to breathe life into this, and it's no longer about ego of you building yourself up. Now you're creating an outlet for other people to take center stage, to develop their chops, to be able to experience something they've never experienced before. What has that process
Mm.
been like for you, stepping into the creative director position of this performing arts studio? Like, what has that been like for you?
Amazing in a lot of different ways and also challenging and very well put, by the way. I loved how you summarized that. Cinderella story, yes. So Cinderella, the before the gown, so like we're at this like enduring Cinderella part of the timeline, and we have yet to be revealed as in our full glory. But we started Love Good Performing Arts Company in 2020, and just saying
Really
that alone,
booming
just
year. Great time to get,
great time
a
to
bunch of
yeah.
people together in spaces, like just the
Yeah.
greatest time ever.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, crazy. And, every theater, every aspect of our of performing arts, shut down. It was like, oh, we're moving online. And so whether you, and actually, funny enough, Ames and I were doing comedy sports all the way up to the minor league before COVID, and they started doing online only for a while, and it's just sad. It just felt like performance just felt sad and dangerous, and it was so. What a time to open up a performing arts company. When we did it, like we have a mutual friend, Tim, who helped me do a virtual basically show. It was a musical, like a review.
Oh
Yeah,
my
so we like individually recorded all of these kids doing their things and in a mic, and it was insane. But that was and it was actually we have this nice finished product, that I'm so grateful that we are able to have and walk away with. But that's what it was like. You know, what I think is interesting is that it made us, this is not about COVID, but one thing that was lacking in that time that maybe we took for granted was that piece of connection with another person on stage. There's lots of different performers that have a varied amount of motivations for why they would put themselves on stage, whether it's financial reason, like because they're talented at it and they've just been working at it, they have their degree, etc., and that's why they do it because they're like, well, this is my field, right? Or you have people that love the applause, and they do it for the clap. Then you have people that they could care less if there were people in the audience or very few. They love and really relish the opportunity to act and to be on stage with another person and to work with a cast and to create another world. And that that is something that, funny enough, it's very similar to Insomnia. One thing that Insomnia has always been known for is just being somebody's office space or living room, right? It's Hillsborough's living room, because you're able to just be somewhere else and feel comfortable there. If I can create these worlds with these with my students, where people can come in and they lose their sense of reality at least for an hour or two, and just be captivated in another story in another place, and they feel like they're that's a gift to me. That's to our community. That's and not just to our community. It's a gift to the actors, because
Mhm.
then they can also, because the lights are shining in your face, and I tell them all the time, you don't have to be scared. You won't see anybody. The lights are so blaring that you also get the privilege to be in another world with these other people, and do something amazing. Play pretend, for crying out loud. We haven't been able to play pretend since we were like 8 or 9, and then we like dropped that like a bad habit, except for me. I mean, but
Some people still hold on
but
to it. They hold on to the dream.
and I think it's important to be able to imagine and pretend. Again, it gives you some power over narrative, over expression. Yeah, it's a really cool thing to be able to do. They do seem like opposite worlds, and they are different industries for sure. But the parallels in managing and running an environment and a coffee shop and a theater company are actually strikingly similar. And I find my role between the two organizations very similar as well, which helps me manage to be able to do both, because that's one of the questions I get all the time. How do you do both?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, my job is very similar. And we have a newer staff, are new to like being a staff of a theater organization, and it's a really tight team here at the theater. And one of my greatest privileges is leading them and teaching them to lead.
Well, I love that you are kind of a creator of world, like you're a creator of safe spaces for people to actually connect. And it's funny because when you were describing this interaction that you have on stage with your cast members, there's an intimacy that takes place there,
Totally.
that you trust the other person, that you know that they're going to be there with their lines in their place. But then there's also, like, even when you get into the improv side of things, now all of a sudden you're trusting that the other person is going to support you no matter what silly thing that you say. And what's really interesting is you can find this type of connection in any type of environment where there's collaboration, whether that's in sports where you have to trust other people. For me, like, I was in martial arts for, over 20 years. And there's a level of intimacy when someone is hitting you that that they're not going to hurt you. Like,
really feel the impact.
Really feel the impact that they have in your life.
Oh, I love it.
But whether that's in sports, whether that's in any type of theater, even in music, when you're creating a piece, there's a level of intimacy there. And I think I would almost go as far to say it's a level of intimacy that you even experience within the military. Now, I didn't serve in the military, but when you are in community with people in a safe space and you're going through something like COVID, you created this space for youth, for people to come together to say, you know what, for so long I've been wearing my mask everywhere I go. Now I'm going to go into this one scene, into this one place, and this is going to be the place where I can just wear the mask. And then it frees me to go out and be who I am. And there's a confidence that comes with that. There's a confidence of having a space where you can just be yourself. And I love that you create that pretty much with everything that you touch, wherever it is that you go.
Yes. One thing, my wife pays me some compliments every now and then. And, she's good to know that she's great. She's very supportive in every area of my life. Really, honestly, she is. And one compliment, as I'll remember them, the compliments that she gives me is, as a director, like an actual director, not just like overall director, but working through a show. She said that, one of your greatest strengths in directing is creating moments. So an ability for a director to get in the weeds with a certain transition of a scene or a scene between two people, especially when you're blocking it and, you give them, you're kind of like, you exit here, you come on here, etc. And then you trust that they will allow that moment to happen. However, sometimes people need, and a lot of times people need direction. They want to know, like, I am going to put myself out there and do what I think is natural or what I think we should do, but I'm 100% open just for you to speak into this and say, what does that look like? How can we make this more impactful, etc. And that perspective, that outside perspective or a perspective as a leader is needed. It's wanted, actually. And a lot of times people in society will they don't want to hear my opinion. They don't want to hear how I think, Obviously there are people that are overbearing in this area. And you probably can think of people that are just like, they give their opinion all the time. And you're like, okay, you probably, but for artists specifically, it's such a vulnerable thing to put yourself out there. It's a very wise thing for a director to allow them to try and then just infuse it with perspective and how questions, what do you want to get out of this? What do you want? What does your character want? What do they want? And allow them to see it from different angles, and then they can try something. And then you can like throw in little nuggets and they're like, oh yes. And then you, all of a sudden you're creating this whole thing, and which would normally be just fly over, you just fly over that scene because it's just like, we're just going on to the next song. But I would say that it's those scenes that, even though people can't articulate it and patrons can't articulate it when they're leaving the theater, they just feel good. They felt like that was an experience. And again, coming back to Insomnia, people can't always articulate why they love to come in Insomnia. or why they love to go to a particular shop, but they feel all the subliminal cues and environment and all of that. They feel those things as they're coming in and entering or as they're exiting, and it feels right. And so
Mm.
they're like, I want to go back to that place that feels right. you know. So
Well, you create a framework for people. It's kind of like
yeah,
you build a house, and you build it in a way that you know that people will be able to use it, that they'll enjoy being in the space, but it's still a blank wall. They can put what they want on it. They
totally.
can paint it. They can put their couch wherever they want. They can, not necessarily put the window where they want, but
Yeah,
you put things in a place where it opens up opportunity for people to truly be themselves. And I think that's what you do
yeah,
in every single aspect of your life. You create these opportunities, you create these frameworks, you create moments for people to just be who they were
mm,
created to be. And I think that's what's really powerful. Evan, I've really loved our time just kind of diving into your story, diving into even some of the philosophies of kind of how you live your life. I have one more question for you, but before I ask it,
sure.
to everyone listening, I want you to, first of all, go grab some amazing coffee from Dapper and Wise Roasting. I have it right here. I drink it every single morning. It's by far one of my favorite blends. I'm not being paid for this promotion, by the way. Uh, but truly, truly an amazing coffee that when you taste it, you say, man, there was a lot of love. There was a lot of thought that went into
Mm,
this. So go grab a bag of coffee, treat yourself. And
yes.
secondly, go check out Love Good Performing Arts Company in Beaverton, Oregon. If you're in the area, go check them out. If you're not in the area and you're looking for a nonprofit that you want to support, you can support them through donations. They give thousands of donations out. I think up to this point this year in 2023, you guys have given out over $40,000 of scholarships to different people, which is absolutely phenomenal, amazing. So, and that doesn't happen without amazing sponsors who come in and sponsor the types of shows that they're doing. So go check them out. Go see how you can get involved, and get involved even within your own community. Find a local company, performing arts company that is in your
Yeah,
community that's giving back.
absolutely.
I know that would be
Hmm.
something that Evan would love for you guys to do. Um,
Hmm.
Evan, you've had great opportunities to pour into people's lives, and I didn't mean for it to come out this way, but you've poured into life with coffee. You, you know,
Oh, the
you,
puns.
yeah, the puns that go on. I'm a dad. That's where it comes from. But you pour
Yeah.
into lives with your coffee. You pour into lives within performing arts. I know you have 5 kids that you pour into every single day, and I know that they're a joy to you. How
Hmm.
do you nurture the spark of other people? Like
Mm,
how do you take their dreams, the things that they love, the things that they're talented in, and how do you inspire? How do you craft an environment for someone
mm,
to truly start to be who they were created to be? Because I know a lot of parents that I talk to, and they say, my
mm.
kid's getting into this particular thing, and I don't know how to encourage them in this, because I don't know how to write. I don't know how to sing,
Yeah.
or play the piano, or roast coffee, or do
Hmm.
welding, or whatever it is. How do you
Yeah.
nurture the spark in someone else's life?
Mm. Well, this um,
Easy
every
questions,
fine.
right?
Yeah, easy question. Gosh, where do I come at it? I would say the greatest aspect of leading or being or just aspect of life is being a father to my kids. They are the greatest joy to me, even in the worst of times, the worst of emotions and all of that. And I have a teenager, and I have 2 more coming up in the teenagehood. But I'm just saying, like, they are just the greatest joy for me, and they are so unique from each other. And having 5 kids is it could be tricky, because I've seen families that have lots of kids, and then you get the lost kid syndrome, the one that
One
is
that got
like
away.
yeah, the one that
Yeah.
got away. And there's lots of family dynamics that still are at play, but as a father, I guess my joy and my duty is to read read my kids the best that I can on a day-to-day basis, not just like a larger assumption, because things change from day to day, and really just get a read on where they are and check in with them, love them, give them space, and I think, when we got to get stuff done, we got to get stuff done. Like, but thrusting that on my family is never a good suit for me to say, oh, we gotta go, it's just not good. So just careful, like, to give, a heads up, or maybe 8 reminders of what's happening tomorrow night or whatever, but all that to say, like, aside from just going and milling about as a family of 7, I think both my wife and I, we sit and banter back and forth on the fun, unique characteristics that each of our kids bring to the table. Even if they're trickier to manage or they're harder emotionally to manage, but they all are so unique and wonderfully made.
Hmm.
And it is our privilege to steward them in life, and to give them as the best kind of love and perspective that we can. Speaking to my kids, that really draws back to what I was saying at the beginning, as all of those years and decades of social ninja, learning different kinds of personalities, it has formed me into, and I'm not ashamed to say that I'm a great dad. I love my kids and they love me, and I'm so grateful to be in their life in the capacity that I am.
I love the perspective that you have. First of all, to create the space for them to be themselves, but then also the perspective that you have to look for the good in your kids, to talk with your wife, and to say, "Hey, did you see this? Like, this was really cool." And there's those moments. I think we can easily pass up over those as parents, because we get wrapped up in the day to day of, oh my gosh, this is happening. Did you hear what they did? Did you see what they said? Or did you hear what they said? And you can
Right.
kind of get wrapped up in that. But when you stop and you speak life over them, of like, oh, did like, just the other day watching my daughter helping my son, I was like, oh my gosh, like, we're doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
Or even we were driving down to see their grandparents this last week. We're driving back up, and my daughter, from the back seat, because we've got 3 kids, so from the back seat I hear, "Daddy, thank you for driving us all the way down to Grandma and Grandpa's." And my daughter's 4.5. Like,
Right.
I'm like, I can graduate. They can leave. Like, this is, I'm done being a parent. I like, this is the best moment of my life. But that it all comes back almost to a perspective of, are you looking for those opportunities? And I love that you say reading your kids every single day. I think that we don't read people enough. We get into this common space with people and just assume that their life is good. We just assume that maybe their life is always bad. And we never actually dig deeper to say, hey, what's going on in life? Tell me what's really going. How are you feeling about that? So I love the fact that you say reading your kids every single day.
And it doesn't have to be like a full-on half an hour discussion, and nor would they want that. I mean, some of my kids are just like, "It's good, Dad, just give me some space," But like my son, who's 16, going on 17, going on 12, but I'm so grateful that he wants to spend time with me. You hear it all the time, like, oh, once they get to a certain age, they don't want to spend any time with you. And my son is like, he relishes any time that he can, when I'm just sitting in his room or listening to his record collection or just talking, shooting the breeze. And those are unique opportunities that I could fill my day with lots of things. But those are the rocks in the jar, as it were. Those are the things you have to put in first, because if you don't, you'll miss that opportunity, and they will miss it. So giving that priority and the space for them is important to me.
Well, and there's something about the perspective that you have that if you say, "Oh, my kids are going to grow distant to me," like the more you focus on that, the more you're going to start to create those opportunities where they will. And I found that
Yeah,
like the more that I see things like, "Oh, I believe we're going to be a great family. I know that we're going to have great bonds, and we're going to talk about things, and we're going to be open with those with anything that comes up." If you believe that, if you continually believe that and think upon that, you start to create that in your world. And so if you want a good
totally.
relationship with your kids, going beyond, adolescence, you have to start thinking that now. You can't think, oh, well, they're going to have their own friends and they're never going to talk to me again. Because guess what? That's what's going to happen. But when you actually start to think, you
Yeah.
know what, my kids know that I love them and that they can come to me and talk to me about anything, and I create an open space
Mm.
where, even if you have the opportunity to sit on the couch when they walk in the door from school, and you don't even necessarily say like, hey, come and sit down and have a conversation with me. If you create that opportunity, there's the likelihood that at one point they're going to start sitting down, and if you can start asking questions and listening, it's going to create a door of opportunity for you to actually spend time with your kids. Evan, I love this time. It has been so good. It's so rich, the conversation that we've had. I want to thank you for coming on, inspiring so many people to grow in who they are. Find a space where you can be you, whether that's
Mm.
at a great coffee shop like Insomnia, or whether that's at a performing arts theater. I want to encourage all of you guys listening. Go find a place where you can be you. I know so many people have been really enjoyed this conversation. I know that they've been encouraged with it. So for all of you listening, remember to like, share, subscribe, and I can't wait to see you guys on the next episode. Remember to be more, see more, and experience more than before.